Well, this one I've been really looking forward to because I used to think that I was a dab hand at dealing with mould and condensation and damp, but until I met this guy, and I always called him Santa because I only ever see him in winter and I see him once a year. And I've just got to give a little shout out to my other half. I've got your favourite glasses on, my dear. She says I look like Harry Potter wearing these. Just thought I'd get that one in. Anyway, on a more serious note, Chris and I have known each other, 10 years now? Chris, we met at a PIN meeting many years ago, down south, I think it was.
That's right, in Southampton.
Was it that? Yeah, Southampton. And Chris came to me and said, look, I'm a surveyor on damp. Maybe I can give you a hand because conversation on rising damp and condensation came up quite a lot, especially in the winter months. And Chris has done a couple of our webinars. Maybe we trialed it out a couple of years ago, and it went okay. And people took your advice, but because we've been now doing the lock-in advice webinars, I've been pesterising Chris to come and do it because Chris is semi-retired now, and Chris said, "You really want me to do it?" I said, "Yeah, but you need to tell members." Very factual, very precise on what they need to do. Because I put an email out today. Before I start, I need to say something because Anthony's waving at me, kind of nodding. I need to repeat myself. If you do not want to be recorded under the GDPR rules, could you please leave now? Done that. Okay. I've forgotten what I was saying now about damp. What was I talking about?
You were saying that you put an email out today or a post.
Yeah, because one of the things is that landlords always get accused, that they don't look after their houses, Then you get the tenant moaning, the landlord moaning that they're not opening the windows. I drove past, I didn't see any windows open. And legislation is coming in that you've got to now insulate your homes. Especially in the solid brick houses, Chris, especially up north, a lot up north, and in some of my houses. And I don't know if I'm coming or going. 1 minute I'm told to open the windows, next minute I'm told to close the windows. So, Chris, what the bloody hell do we do?
Who told you to open the windows, Nick? Your landlord?
You were dead right there. Well, I mean, you see it, and I tell you what, I had an inspection in one of my house. They had major issue, and the council actually told my tenants to open the window, and I'm not lying. Is to get rid of the bad air. So
how long ago was that? Was that
told 3 years ago?
Yeah. It's a tough one, Nick, on that point. It's not an argument, or it's not a discussion point that I particularly like. And from the point of view of, let's take the technicalities out of it. Do you remember when we had? The Beast from the East a couple of years back? Snow everywhere. In actual fact, I think that I was talking to you that evening. You were driving home. You needed to get home quickly because you were going to be covered in snow. Might not be able to get out of your house. Yeah. All right. Well, there you. I think in actual fact, if I remember, you couldn't get out of your house.
I couldn't get out of my house.
All right. So you were stuck in your house. Did you have all your windows open?
No, I didn't.
Cool. Precisely, because let's take the technicalities out of should we have the windows open to improve the air quality, etc., etc. We are all human at the end of the day, and we all do get cold. So this is when this issue of condensation becomes prevalent in the winter months. We've got a couple of things there. A, we are human. We feel the cold. Secondly, some are in fuel poverty, but not all of us are. But even if we have got the heating system on, no matter what heating system it is, we don't want to lose that heat that we're paying for. And so when you direct someone, when you tell them you are creating this issue because you are not opening the windows, well, let's face it, to a degree, you could be a hypocrite because you might be going back to your own home and the windows will all be closed. So that's a very difficult argument. I gave a presentation to the Cornwall Landlords Association in January this year, just before COVID became announced. Do you know what, that down there, the Cornwall Council will pull you over the coals if you as a landlord were to use not opening windows as a justification for black mold issues prevailing. So how's about that? That is, you will be in trouble for telling a tenant that an issue has come about for them not opening the windows. Do you want me to bore you now with a little bit of a technical point?
Yeah, please, Chris, that's what we're all here for. This is
Okay.
your show.
Well, I'm mindful of, there'll be your members coming in and they might have their own questions regarding rising damp and bridging damp. And, the whole subject matter is really pretty boring. And I'm happy to cover these things. It's such a big field, it's difficult to cover it in an hour. So I'm going to, skirt over a few of the in-depth technical issues. But on this particular point of a technicality, the particular approved document, building regulations approved document, is called Part F. This is what tells us or directs us as to how we should go about introducing ventilation into a property. An extract fan in the bathroom that achieves so many litres per second, extract fan in a kitchen, blah, blah, blah. Windows, purge ventilation, background ventilation, warm air appliance ventilation. A window opening falls under the category of purge ventilation. Yeah. And so do trickle vents, window trickle vents. You've got different sizes of window openings, right? And there is guidance as to the sizes and the change of air that you can achieve from purge ventilation. If you read that particular document in depth, in actual fact does say that for opening windows, you lead to heat loss, and it is therefore recommended that this in actual fact isn't a genuine means of ventilation for that very fact. It's covered in Part F, approved document Part F, building regulation for ventilation. Isn't that a mind-boggling fact? Now, just to add to that, as you alluded to earlier, the government is saying, all right, well, let's make these grants available and let's introduce these measures to make our properties more energy efficient. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. And it's a sensible measure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's now, energy efficiency, just to clarify that point, that's not making a house necessarily any warmer. What it is actually doing, or its intention, is to keep the heat that you are generating in that property through the heating system in the property for as long as possible.
Yes.
That's energy efficiency, yeah?
I agree with that. And again, it takes less heat to heat the house up as well.
We're being more energy efficient.
Yes.
And then we're telling people to open the windows to prevent a black mold problem.
I totally agree. I've got some black mold, yes, in my rented houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you think, well, how the bloody hell do you get over it?
Right. Okay. So, and again, not to be too technical, but just going back to my point as to who's right, who's wrong. It is a technical point. Some technicalities are covered as, but then there's the, the human factor. We don't want to be cold. We don't want to lose the heat that we're paying for. What do we do? Well, you do have to look at the ventilation provision. Hey, how's about this? As this is one of my pet peeves. One of my pet peeves, because it's always going to be the tenant's fault. Modern day construction, and in actual fact quite often in HMO conversions, all right, we are creating kitchen stroke living spaces, kitchen living areas. The cooking area or the cooker might be located quite internally into that space. It's a combined, might be a dining area, might be a living area. You've got the kitchen, and the ventilation provision, all right, will be window openings, window trickle vents, and the mechanical extraction, all right, which will tick the building regs box, will be the cooker hood extractor.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Right. How many times in tenanted properties are you aware of those filters being cleaned? That when you go along and you see them and you touch them, that your hand gets stuck to them because they're covered in grease. Yeah. Or that you hear of the situation where they're not used, all right, because they are also in the living space. Someone might be watching I'm a Celebrity or the football or whatever it is, and they're told, for God's sake, switch that off, I can't hear the TV. They're noisy, they're intrusive, and they are the least efficient in terms of mechanical extract ventilation. But they tick the box.
Yeah, but if you look at some of the new build, David Wilson,
Yeah.
they've turned their kind of living space.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kitchen and the dining room, and they've got settees in it. Yes. And it's really quite chase.
Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. They make for very nice, comfortable living arrangements. It's a good use of the space.
Yeah.
I'm addressing that these places, and in HMOs, in tenanted student HMOs, professional HMOs, those particular areas can be quite troublesome for mold issues because they might be used for a communal drying area. You'll see maybe the towels on the radiators. It's a living area, so you've got the bodies, you've got the cooking that's going on, and the provision is a cooker hood extractor that gets left untouched. It's the least maintained bit of kit in the kitchen. I'm talking about maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Why do you have an isolator switch with an extract fan? What's that for?
Sorry?
Why do you have an isolator switch with an extract fan installation? You'll see that quite often, more often you'll see an isolator switch above a bathroom door or by a bathroom door.
Yeah.
Who's that there for? Is it for the tenant?
Don't know.
Isolator switches, yeah, again, this is building regs. They are for maintenance reasons. They are for an electrician to be able to go along, look at that appliance, all right, and it is switched off for them by the isolator switch to carry out maintenance works.
Yeah.
There we are, mate. I'm going to be honest. There's a case in point. You are a very experienced landlord, big property portfolio. God knows how many extract fans you must have across your portfolio, and you weren't aware of the function of an isolator switch. And it is for maintenance to extract fans. Now, this is something I see year in, year out. Right?
That's a really good point. I didn't actually think about it.
Boxes ticked, got an extract fan in there. All right, over to you, tenant. All right, there we go. I've fulfilled my obligation. Unless you maintain that every year, you haven't fulfilled your obligation. Because from day one, the performance of that fan is being reduced, yeah, for the dirt and the fluff and the gunk that is being built up around the grills at both ends of the fan, the fan in the ceiling or in the wall, and then the grill on the outside. That's what an isolator switch is for. And this is what I come across, mate. It is the awareness that we put these things in. So we've got a cooker hood, I've told you about that. We've got extract fans. And we think that we, as landlords, we've done what we've meant to do. Oh, I mean, and I probably survey more properties without extract ventilation than have it. But that for having it, that's not the end of the journey. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've cleaned, bathroom insulation, like the fan, etc. But I don't actually think I'm really trying to be honest here, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't think I've taken any notice of the extractor fan. I actually can't remember whether somebody has taken anything to do with the even my own house. Yeah. I don't take much notice of it, Chris. And I'm trying to give a real honest opinion here because again, I'm learning. That's I didn't even think about that. Paul, did you think about that honestly? Because I didn't, and I don't want to drag other people in, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you should get your cleaner or the tenant to clean it with a vacuum every time they do it. Some do, some don't. Well, so, some do, but most don't.
Yeah, that's fair. Most don't. Most don't.
I've been sitting here squirming for the last 15 minutes because unknowingly you have described my entire flat in terms of, and I thought I was quite good, to be fair. But I've got that cooker hood only ever goes on the lowest setting, if at all. You do the drying inside in that same communal area. Never clean the extractor fan. You know, absolutely everything that you've said, and I've never thought of any of it before. You've started.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. This weekend, you know what I did this weekend, don't you? Yeah, Anthony. We cleaned top to bottom. Everything got cleaned. I just thought everything got cleaned.
Yeah. You clean the stuff that you care about. That's the problem. Yes, you've come flying out the gates here.
Yeah, sure, man.
Should we proceed with the presentation that you?
I want to know what we should do, though, Chris.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea, Anthony. Can I just one point on the subject? I mean, it's a big point. Extract ventilation. How's about this? So, as a surveyor, you've had me do a few surveys for you, Nick. Right.
You have. You've done surveys. You've driven all the way up north to do my surveys.
So here we go. I was talking to you earlier in the day, and I said there's big issues with education. We take a lot for granted with what we think tenants are aware of. So this is what I will do when I do a survey and the tenants are present. I will first look to see that there is an extract fan in the bathroom or kitchen, or ideally both. Yeah, and I sort of like I fabricate a situation whereby the tenant is nearer to the fan than I am. Yeah, and I will say to them, you couldn't do me a favour, can you just switch on the fan for me? All right. And I then observe, I don't make comments, I then observe to see how they respond to that question. Because the ones that use the fans all the time go straight to it, all right, and not at the isolator switch. It will be at the switch to switch the fan on, or a pull cord. They know where it is, where it's located, and they switch the fan on, and I know, job done, they are using that fan. The other response I will get is an initial thought of, Christ, yeah, where do I switch this on from? Right? At that moment, straight away, I know they are not using the fan, because they are having to think of, all right, is it this switch? Is it that switch? Oh, I don't know. All right. Or that they reach for the isolator switch. All right. Because they shouldn't be switching a fan on for the isolator switch. That is there for the electrician to use. Yeah. The third response is, and they're honest, I never use it. All right. Now, you can do, in actual fact, if ever you do your own visits, all right, it's really interesting. You just do, and because you're doing, you couldn't do me, you're asking, do us a favour, help, you know, it's kind of like, whilst you're there, you just switch the fan on. I know how to turn a fan on, but there's no point. I'm not learning anything if I just go and turn that fan on myself. What I want to find out is the tenant or tenants using the fan as they should be using it? So it's just there's something there for all your members to listen to, hear that, to see, because I'll tell you what, you know, the managing agents won't be doing that kind of thing. We want to know if you've got extract ventilation in the property, it's a provision that's really useful. It helps to reduce condensation and black mold issues. You want to know they're being used. If they're not being used for a lack of awareness, whose fault is that? Is it yours as the landlord? Is it the managing agents? Because in some cases, you know, people might be coming from countries where they're not familiar with extract ventilation. So, yeah, handy to know. Sorry, Anthony, I jumped in there.
No, that was a really, really good point and well made.
That really was. I'm sitting here thinking, Jesus, I thought I knew.
That's why you got me here, mate. Oh,
Chris,
okay.
I'm loving this. Making me feel uncomfortable. Fucking hell. Sorry for my language, but yeah.
All right, mate. Yeah, move that one on then. That's what I say. Yeah. So basically, Anthony, I'm feeding back some you know, observations, some opinions, some views that I come across from my experience of surveying tenanted properties ranging from a single bedroom in an HMO through to, well, you don't get too many tenanted mansions, but you know, the complete spectrum. So it's just feeding back some useful information. Some of it might not be nice to hear.
God, I'm already squirming in my chair.
Here we go. All right, you can move that on. So yeah, I've got a few accreditations. Let's not talk about those. You know me well enough by now.
Yeah.
Right, I need you. So some of the information there is hidden by the our faces.
Yeah,
Can
just
that go over to?
Okay, just a second. How's that?
Still on the. If that could be over onto the left side, or it's the text that I can't.
Yeah, Chris, all you need to do is get your mouse in the black box at the top. Just grab it, keep your finger down, and drag it across. That's what I've just done.
I think that's on your side, mate.
All right, got it. All right, okay.
And when you go to the other side, do the same thing.
All right, nice one. Thank you very much, mate. Okay, so I don't want to read sort of like, you know, verbatim because that would be boring. But it's my experience that from a landlord's perspective, the onus is placed on the managing agents and or the tenant or both of them to be responsible for the condition of the property. So and that will be sort of like internally and externally. And I've put there, so, but what are their qualifications to do this? And I'm sort of like more, and forgive me for if there are any managing agents out there listening to this. I have experienced it when a landlord has someone go around to do their, I don't know if it's a quarterly or 6 monthly inspection, and I mean this in the nicest sense. I do wonder what is actually being inspected. Are they taking a moment to look at any perhaps damaged guttering or anything missing off of the roof, you know, or are they just going in there to look at the condition of the toilet and perhaps, you know, some carpet stains or the kitchen sink? My thought on that, my own answer to that is, it's a tick box exercise. Yeah, inspection carried out, but it was an internal inspection and nothing has been looked at to any depth on the external side. Mortar. How often will you guys have come across a property that might have had retro installed cavity insulation, but the mortar, the pointing is eroding on the southwesterly elevation. And before you know it, you're going to have rainwater penetrating through. It's just an overview, you know, to take a photograph. Yeah, the mortar's falling away on this wall. Perhaps someone should have a look at it. That's not really the tenant's duty of care to look at that. But I think an onus is being placed on that. Now, this one, and this is a harsh one, all right? When I speak to landlords, the vocabulary that's used is that they are, you know, so yeah, it's my property, my investment property, my property portfolio, and that is a mindset. The tenant doesn't share that mindset. Yeah, the tenant don't share that it's your, you know, your property portfolio, your investment. It's their home. What the tenant is living in, and this one is harsh, is they are living in your product. Yeah. Now, how I've put there, imagine if landlords, all right, could receive a Google review, could receive an Airbnb review, Trustpilot review, Facebook reviews. Yeah. If you were offering a product that was a B&B, you're open to being judged by the general public on the quality of your B&B, the quality of your product. But landlords, as I see it, do not feel that they're offering a product, and they are not subject to being reviewed on a public platform. And I think that allows them to forego, you know, some maintenance, forego sort of like delivering a good product. It's harsh, but essentially here we go. At the bottom there, I've put hire car analogy. That was a reminder. Okay, how's about this as a comparison? Let's say I get an inheritance. Yeah, I think, what am I going to do with this money? Shall I go out and buy a property, or what about if I go and buy myself a bunch of cars and I set up a hire car business? Yeah, yeah. They're both products. Yeah, and I've got people getting into a car, and that car legally has to be roadworthy. Yeah, it's got to be taxed. They've got to be insured. It's got to be serviced. The tyres have got to be together. Everything about that product has got to be fit for purpose, fit for use. Yeah, and that's on a product that's a depreciating asset. What's being done, all right, about an asset that increases in value, all right, that has any kind of obligation for keeping it roadworthy, for making it fit for use. Believe it or not, in an asset that could be 100, 150, 200,000 pounds, all right, and more, all right, there is far less legislation, obligation, duty of care applied to that level of asset than there is to a car. I find that amazing. I find that fascinating. I find it fascinating that a landlord could have that level of asset, a £200,000 asset, they might not even go and look at for years on end, because they're relying on feedback provided by tenants and managing agents that sees that property is kept in good order. And when something comes about that it's not in good order, we've got, you know, issues, maybe significant issues, you know, it's, who's to blame for that? When, you know,
I understand that, and I do understand that, but it's, again, when that black mold, there is so much information on, we haven't got onto what we call rising damp, but
yeah,
rising damp, and again, it's just a finger pointing. I mean, I wouldn't know. I do know by listening to you over how to overcome it, and you're right. But I really want to get into more of your presentation, but really, like, and all the members are listening to this, and landlords are listening to this, is about how do we overcome this in the most effective way, cost efficient way.
So you really, I'm going to jump in there, mate. How do you overcome it? And in my experience, mate, the simplest way is to overcome it is for preventative planned maintenance. So many of these issues come about through negligence. All right, the structural side of the structural damp. So black mold isn't structural damp. Structural damp will be rising damp, penetrating damp, bridging damp. Yeah, the two biggest causes of damp actually in tenanted land are condensation and water leaks, plumbing leaks, radiator pipe leaks. Those are the two biggest, most common issues. Very, very rarely, in actual fact, do I come across rising damp as an issue in tenanted property. Quite often, there might be issues with bridging down. That's debris in a cavity, bridging across. It's bridging across maybe for mortar. You know, the pointing, rebating. It's not been. It's, you know, the external fabric hasn't been maintained. Maintained is that, well, that's just, you know, that's just choosing to ignore it, or negligence. You just keep things up to scratch. You're going back to the car. You get the car wash. You take that to the car wash once a week, once every couple of weeks. Your walls, they don't get looked at for years on end, and it's maintaining the exterior that will mean that the interior remains free from damp for years on end.
Good.
Let's go on, mate. Let's move on. Next slide, Anthony. Right, and over there. In respect of damp, what are landlords obligated? Right. This is important. There are obligations, legal obligations. Going to be honest, I don't know how much gets fed back through the managing agents, but it's a fact. It's no coincidence. Post Grenfell, the Landlord and Tenant Act I think it's 1989. That's been superseded by the Homes Fitness for Human Habitation Act 2018. You aware of that legislation, Nick?
Don't ask me.
All right, mate.
No, no, it wasn't.
That is a new legislation document. All right, now, why is that important?
Right, yeah, right. I knew about it, Chris, because you told me about it.
Okay,
yes,
mate.
right. But I didn't want to, I would not have known about it unless you had told me.
So to summarise, in my bit of this discussion and the relevance, that's to provide a dwelling that's free from damp and provide efficient ventilation and heating. I mean, there's so much more in that. All right. Why is it different to the former act? Okay, I'll tell you why it's different. Do a Google search. Anyone out there, do a Google search now. All right. Google will summarise that as the key difference to this new bit of legislation. All right. Makes it easier for tenants to sue the landlords. As a summary, that's the difference. All right. Now, landlords are going to be held to account that much harder than they were prior to Grenfell. You're all aware of the need to have your EICR reports done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Post Grenfell. All right. And that's hurting a lot of landlords at the moment with having to have these reports carried out. You probably have to pay for the report, and then any of the recommendations have got to be filled. In a nutshell, accountability. All right. Now, this one is hurting. I've seen a lot of this year. A couple of years ago, again before Grenfell, all right, I could get a call to go and look at a black mold issue in a tenanted property, all right, that had been neglected, no action been taken on it, and I'm there to coordinate a meeting with a local council environmental health officer. Yeah. That environmental health officer would have discussed the issues with me, and the landlord would have probably faced with getting a notification to act on that black mold issue. Yeah. Might run into, £200-300, maybe put a fan in, something of that nature. He's in for a few £100. All right. Now, if an environmental health officer gets called out to look at a black mold issue, I can assure you, and this is up and down the country, all right, they are not only going to go and look at that black mold issue, they are going to look at smoke alarms, window frames, fire escapes, anything of maintenance, or just to bring so much. So what might have been a £200 job to get some mold sorted out, I'm seeing bills racking up into £5,000, £6,000, £10,000 worth of work with notices served behind that.
Yeah, Katie just said that they checked 29 areas of her place.
It's happening, and it could have been avoided. Just that's on the issue that someone flagged up in the first place. All right, that's quite scary, because they are being serious about that.
Yep.
And they're serious about it because of this legislation. All right.
Good point, Chris.
There are some, serious obligations. It's up, if you've got managing agents, it's their responsibility to, ensuring that they're, keeping you informed of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
All right. Okay. List of it. My personal observations as to why damp. This is you want to. This is what you want to be finding out. So I've already touched on neglect. It's poor maintenance. Yeah. Lack of understanding or doing the wrong thing. So lack of understanding that can come from landlords, managing agents, surveyors, so-called surveyors, tenants. There's a lot of wrong advice out there across all sorts of things. A lack of understanding. Just, as I've just pointed out there, the new Homes Fitness for Habitation Act, a lot of people that should know about that don't know about that. Tenant awareness. All right. Now, this is something I find that I have found increasing considerably over the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's clear that we're moving to an ever increasing tenanted marketplace. We're going to be a nation of renters than we were homeowners, where previously we were looking at being a nation of homeowners with fewer renters. So we've got more people renting, but we also, and we take for granted that because they read a lease agreement and they signed that lease agreement, that they can all understand English, they can all understand obligations. I did a survey the other day for a lovely Philippine. I mentioned to you, I rang the buzzer on the door entry system. Hello, I'm here to do a survey, a damp survey. He said, are you the gas man? I said, no, I'm here to do a damp survey. He said, all right, yeah, okay. And he hesitated. And he said, oh, I'm sorry if I let you in. What is damp? And they were the most lovely Philippine family. As in my case in point, we are assuming, all of us, landlords, agents, surveyors, everyone involved in it, we are assuming that our tenants can understand what their obligations are, can understand these issues, that they understand humidity and the benefit of opening windows, the benefit of putting the heating system on, that they understand how to operate these things. They rock up, get the keys, you know, happy days, move in. I'm getting my rent, you move in. And there's so much that they aren't aware of that we assume that they are aware of. Again, apologies if agents are watching. Lack of agents' diligence. This goes back to my view on property inspections. You know, I'm going to be honest, quite a few that they are a tick box exercise, looking at the internal side of a property only. I think that they should be providing a little bit more of a thorough report on that side. This one, I can honestly feedback because it is upsetting. I don't like to hear it. I try to play a role in pacifying them. Tenants are genuinely scared of bringing damp issues to the attention of a landlord or the managing agent, and they are worried that they are going to be blamed for it and thrown out of the house. They are so scared. They are worried about what I will be putting in my report, that they are worried that my report will reflect on them. And people, they're living in fear. And that's not nice to hear. And it's counterproductive, isn't it? They need to know that we are here for them to report an issue to. You want them to be reporting an issue of damp to you as soon as possible. Because the sooner you're made aware of a damp issue, in theory, the sooner you can act on it and prevent it from getting worse. That's the thing. A leak in a bathroom tap, left undetected or untreated for months, can lead to a dry rot outbreak, and then you're ripping that bathroom out. Whereas it could have been a £50 job for a plumber to go around and fix. So that is a genuine issue, is getting tenants to feed back information, but not be in fear of doing that. And finally, and this is more, this is something I observe more in respect of conversions from, say, a Victorian semi-detached to an HMO. Or redevelopments in general. It's doing it on a very tight budget. You know, what's it? Pay cheap, do it and pay twice. That is
buy cheap, buy twice.
Thanks, Anthony. I can honestly, you know, that's whoever, you know, that's not me making that up. That's a fact. If you take a property that was a Victorian house, intended to be for a single family, operating in the function of a single family, and it's carved up, dry lined, super insulated, new double glazing units, but everything, you know, the cheapest extract fans that you can put in that tick the box and get signed off, you end up with problems. Yeah, try not to do it. You know, I think there's a lesson in that for all kinds of purchases. You know, you get what you pay for.
No, I totally agree with that. That's why we try to use the Real McCoy products. We
There you
recommend
go.
the Real
That's
McCoy
it.
product.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It makes sense to do
So,
that.
Chris, can
Yeah.
we start talking about you've made your point?
Yeah, go on, move on, because I think I'm coming to, the points there.
I want to know how the damn well to get around these issues and tell my members and advise them. And again, we might have to do another one of these. I know you've drawn a picture, but I really want to get into the nuts and crusts. And we've got 31 questions come up. 31.
Oh, okay.
So because
you can bring those down. There's more points there, Anthony. You can just drop them in. It's easier to do that.
Yeah.
All right. The types of damp. I didn't want to be so. Basically, you got your structural damp issues. Damp from the ground, commonly referred to as rising damp, which isn't necessarily always a failure of a damp-proof course. That may well be that someone has decided to render a brick face elevation, and now you're forcing moisture up a wall. So with structural damp, you've got rising damp, bridging damp. That's damp that's able to make its way through the outer leaf of brick across a cavity, which might have some debris in there, or a wall tie, corroding wall tie is creating a bridge, a lodged brick within a cavity. That's any medium that creates a bridge from the outer leaf of brick to the inner leaf. That's bridging damp. And penetrating damp. Penetrating damp, more commonplace with, say, solid 9-inch walls. And water, maybe from faulty rainwater goods, penetrating the outer leaf and just transferring through to the decorated surface. That's penetrating damp. Even if the rainwater doesn't penetrate all the way across a 9-inch solid wall, it's have an effect on its thermal performance, because the rainwater will make its way through the mortar and into the brick. It will sit there until it's got the opportunity to dry out. But if during the course of the winter months, we'll have a frost. Yeah, and so now that moisture content is freezing within the wall, and that is affecting the thermal performance of the wall. Now we're getting a cold wall, and then a cold wall, high humidity, windows are closed. Now we start to get condensation forming on that cold wall. Yeah, so that's penetrating damp. And we have surface condensation, which that's what causes our black mold issues. Roof leaks, another common issue, which we're getting more and more of, because our weather patterns are so extreme now. We get these really heavy rainfall events, very strong winds. And then finally, internal water leaks. That's plumbing leaks, radiator, shower trays, bathroom sealants. So amongst all of those, condensation and water leaks are the most prevalent issues, and thankfully they are, because they're the most easiest to fix. There's your summary of your damp problems. Right, okay, now I'm not going to read through this. No one will know, all right? I'll talk, because at the very top, you said, go on, how do we get around condensation? Nick, look at that. You wouldn't know this, all right? Someone like me will work to a code of practice. A British BS stands for British Standard, not the BS that you're thinking of. BS 5250, the code of practice for the control of condensation in properties. Right, that's just, you can get this kind of thing on the internet. That's a very, very technical document, highly technical document. So I don't want to go back just to the point that you raised. Well, should we open windows? Shouldn't we? It's really not as simple as that. It's a very technical subject. Just to, for those that might be interested in nerdy kind of stuff like this, there you go, mate. BS 5250, very technical. Okay, Anthony. I talked about approved document, means of ventilation. Part F, all right, building regulations, 2010, very recent document. Yeah, you'll agree it's only 10 years old. This is the Bible that we work to when we're thinking about ventilation provisions. Yeah, in both residential and commercial property. Anthony, I think you can move that one on for me. This is this document that we worked to. Move the slide on. All right. You can get this from the that website there, the government web portal for building regulations. All right. The problem with this document, and it's massive for landlords. All right. The problem with this document is most landlords and the properties that they are offering, all right, are not new build properties. They are not. There aren't many of them that have been built since 2010 that are being put out. I mean, for sure there are, but the majority of properties in the residential tenanted land are older than that. Many of them are Victorian, Edwardian, 1950s, all right. Now, we take a Victorian property and we turn it into an HMO. We work to this document, all right, for new dwellings, all right. It's totally and utterly inappropriate for HMO conversions. The reason that it's inappropriate, okay, is for the use that house that it was originally built for, as I say, a Victorian house, a single family, all right, where the fireplaces were offering the ventilation, where the fireplaces were also the heating provision, they're all being removed, all right, and we're putting in double glazed units, super insulated walls, and then we're putting a whole bunch of occupants in there, all right, that when the house was built in Victorian times wouldn't have had a clue how we live our lives these days, that we've got showers and we're having a number of showers a day, that we cook at all kinds of different times during the day, that we live our lives totally differently, all right, and we are carrying out our lives in accordance with ventilation that isn't written for an HMO, it was written for a single dwelling. There is actually moves from the Property Care Association, which I'm a PCA qualified surveyor. They are talking currently with this department about creating an addendum, if you like, a Part F for existing dwellings, because the requirements for ventilation are so much more challenging in tenanted properties and in older dwellings that are being converted for tenanted lifestyle. Again, it's not a landlord's fault, it's not managing agent's fault, it's not a tenant's fault that this particular document is insufficient for, if you like, tenanted lifestyles.
That's brilliant, Chris. Nick mentioned earlier on
that's really good, but I'm listening to this,
go on, mate.
I want to hang myself.
Nick, if I can just answer that is kind of, I like that. I like to hear that, because I'm hoping that you and amongst the other members that might be listening to that and feeling the same will start to maybe challenge your managing agents to say, I've learned a whole load of stuff here that you've not made me aware of. I
don't want to have a pop, Chris.
No. But it's to say that there is.
It's my responsibility. I own the house. Yeah. So yeah. What I want you to show me.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? How do we start to spend a little bit of money getting rid of the black mold, the rising damp, bridging damp? So what's the remedies to this? Because you can't suddenly, if you built an HMO, and you've got the house. I've got the house. I've got an HMO. I haven't got any HMOs, by the way. Mine are all single dwellings. No. Yeah. But if I've got an HMO and I've got a damp issue, I've got a condensation problem. What is the issue? What do we need to do to overcome that problem that we've created? But we don't go and spend £200,000, Chris, on a property and go, okay, I'm going to cop this right up. I'm going to call mold, condensation issues, etc., and then go, well, I don't give a damn. I need remedies. I want remedies, because I'm so confused about how to get rid of black mold. I know how to get rid of damp. I know how to do that. I've been doing it all my life. But this condensation issue, we can use vents. We can use this. Open your windows. And that was a bit of a joke at the beginning of open the window. But I want to know, how the heck, what advice you can give me and give us to help us. Now, if you've got to put a document together, we'll pay you for that. So we can then put it on our website and go, right, this is what you should all be doing. We need help.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I've just gone back, going back a few slides, there is a whole British standard for how to deal with condensation. To talk to you in this hour, and cover that, it would be, I'd send most of you to sleep. So I will provide some information. It is in theory actually quite straightforward. All right, it's finding a balance of ventilating and heating.
Right.
It's as simple as that. It's striking the right balance. All right.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Yeah. And we need to get, so what is the ventilation provision? Have you got the right, in your property, have you got the right balance of ventilating provision? All right. Then is your tenant in that property on board of fully understanding the ventilation provisions? All right. And are then using those ventilation provisions? What kind of heating have you got? All right. Is the heating working? Is it efficient? And is the tenant using that heating system efficiently? All right. Not everyone can they, Nick? Not everyone can afford it. We ask, so, as to what, why does something have black mold? Why does a wall get black mold and not other walls? It's not technical. Generally, it comes down to we've got high, the humidity inside the house is too high. It wants to get out. It wants to get out because its barometric pressure is greater indoors than it is outdoors. And the route that it wants to get out is through a cold surface. It's the cold walls. It's why we wake up and our windows, we've got certain windows, and we've got the condensation all around the window. The glass is cold, all right? The moisture that's being held in the air by the heating is trying to get out, and it forms itself on the cold windows, cold surfaces, cold walls.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, I need to interrupt you one more time. I need to say goodbye to everybody because I've got a presentation to go and do. Paul and Anthony will be running the rest of this meeting. I just hope members are getting this. I've let Chris off the leases to say, look, this is the conditions, this is what's happening. But what I want from you, Chris, today is if you can help members,
of course, mate,
and also give them some advice on what they need to do and how they need to do.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we need to put a document together, you and I and NMPG, and maybe a real in-depth on some real good practical advice and how to manage these things. So I'd just like to say goodbye to everybody. Paul and Anthony, and I'll speak to you later. Chris, I'll speak to you tomorrow, mate. All right. I'd like to say goodbye to everybody. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, on that, I just seen, Anthony, I just saw someone flag up positive ventilation. I love it. I absolutely love that system, that product. It works, but the right product, the right occasion in the right property, and it's not necessarily always needed. But yeah, move on.
Well, just quickly, Chris, could you just explain what positive input PIV ventilation is?
Yeah, of course. So PIV is positive input ventilation. It's the principle is to take fresh air. Either in a house, a unit will be put into the loft space where generally the air is cleaner or less humid in the loft space. Or if it's an apartment, they will mount a unit on a wall that's ducted to an outside wall that's drawing the air in directly from the outside, goes through the unit where it is filtered to take out any particles. The ones that I recommend will have a low level energy heater just to take the chill off of the air. And then that air, that cleaner, less humid air is delivered into a central part of the property in a house with 2 stories. Typically that will be through a ceiling diffuser in the landing. Or in an apartment, it will be ducted through to generally the hallway area, the central part of the flat, and that is working 24/7 to achieve ideally a minimum air change of to the entire property of once every hour. For doing that, we are replacing and displacing the stale air, and we are reducing and ideally maintaining the level of humidity to normal parameters of ideally between 40 and 60%. It's the thing that I would generally go to last as a solution. I look at, you know, do we have good window openings? Can a tenant open a window and leave it open on a locked setting so they can go to work? I've come across more window openings don't have that as a feature. Do we have trickle vents that are available? Do we have extract fans? And if we do, are they good quality and efficient extract fans? These are the things that I would look for first before I were then to say, well, we have got all of those things, but they're not quite man enough for the job, and we then need to look at a PIV ventilation system, and they do work really well.
Thank you.
Do you want to move the slides on?
Yeah, of course.
What have we got here? Okay, how are we doing for time, by the way?
Well, it's 7:45. We've got.
Wow, that's an hour.
So we're not going to be able to answer all these questions, I imagine.
Sure.
And the issue we have is that each and every answer seems to be longer than the last, but
yeah, they are. So I
on,
might have got a couple of slides, and you know, and I can stick around for as long as anyone wants me to stick around. Or I think my contact details come on a slide at the end. But I think Nick was getting to the point of, you know, what do we do? What are our answers? Well, there are a lot. But this slide, I think the presentation is available for all the members to see online afterwards.
Yeah. So this full recording will be up on our webinar library after this.
Okay, cool. Okay, so a common mistake that I come across in talking to landlords and builders, I'm going to be quite honest, is it's a one fit, you know, solution to everything. Every property needs to be, every issue in every property needs to be treated on its own merits. I think so. A common thing I find, going back again to Malton, in actual fact, and councils and social housing organisations have done this. They will routinely come up with the solution to a black mold issue of fitting a background vent through a wall, and that just, you know, so it's a cheap job, maybe a couple of £100 to do. It's a £50 product, not even £50, and that is providing you know, a passive ventilation option, and yeah, it's generically put through. I've seen them put through an entire housing estate. It's that kind of thing that sort of like annoys me, because no two properties, even though it's on a housing estate, no two properties will be acting in the same way. No two properties will be being used in the same way. So to apply a generic solution to everything is the wrong thing to do. It's the same with damp proofing. You know, damp proofing solutions, you know, going back maybe not even 10 years ago, to treat rising damp, you'd hack the damp plaster off, inject a damp proof course, and then you'd replaster. There are now, you know, that's been superseded by a membrane solution, other solutions where we can arrive at a decorated finish within a couple of weeks that will never be compromised. But there are still people out there who are rendering, hacking plaster off, sand flicking and blackjack on the wall, and then rendering over that. And it's what they will continue to do. They're not moving forward with new solutions and better solutions. I've touched on them. You know, don't use cheap. You know, on your products, don't use budget solutions for remedial works. I've come across it time and again. Pay cheap, pay twice is a fact of the matter. As to who you use, I mean, damp it's not necessarily technical. Sometimes it's just common sense. But the common sense can only sometimes be applied for having looked at this as a problem for years. You're highly experienced in what you're doing. But generally speaking, I would say, as with all the things, use an accredited damp proofer, use Part P qualified electricians, use Corgi registered gas engineers, just use the right people for doing the right jobs. Use damp proofers who subcontract accredited electricians. Be mindful of who work is being subbed out to. Just using the right people, and then at the end of it all, have the tenants on board with what you're doing. Have them focused with the things that you're providing for them. To go back to PIV ventilation, Anthony, these products aren't cheap. They're anything from £800 to £1,500, only to discover that the tenant has found out how to switch them off because they don't want to meet they're worried that it's adding to the electricity bill that they're paying. It's if for installing the equipment, which is a great thing to do, if no one sat down with a tenant, to have a chat to say, look, this is what it does, these are the benefits that it provides, let's give it every chance, then they will go on to interfere with these kind of solutions.
So just going back to products quickly, there you've mentioned avoid budget solutions. Now, if I want a great boiler, I know where to go to, Worcester Bosch.
Sure.
For damp proofing remedial works, are there particular brands that you would recommend, or the Alliance Remedial Services? I know your previous company. So
I'm obviously, I'm the former director of Alliance Remedial Supplies, and the ethos. So Alliance Remedial Supplies, grew very quickly to become, one of the best remedial distributors in the UK. And why was it the best? It was my attitude, it was my ethos that I developed supply relationships with all the major remedial manufacturers in the UK, to name a few: Sovereign, Wickermole, Triton, John Newton Systems, Delta Systems, the ventilator, New Air. So the majority of the major manufacturers in the UK I had supply relationships with. What I chose to do with them was to cherry pick what I felt were the right products for the given problems in terms of both performance and value for money. The new owners of Alliance Remedial Supplies, that they've carried on in the same vein. They've maintained all those relationships, and in actual fact, they've continued to increase their scope of supply. I know that they've got a very big range of roofing products, but yeah, it's behind it, it's not just a case of selling a product. If we didn't think that we had the right product for you, we would decline to sell you a product. It was, and that's what we built our reputation on. So Alliance remain the go-to supplier, and in actual fact, I have an ongoing relationship with them there for technical support.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, mate.
Going back to your damp proofers, my experience, Chris, is that some of the bigger companies, and I won't name them because obviously this is public, but my experience is that some of them will just do the work because it's a tick box exercise, and they will do damp work when it's not a remedial. That's not the problem that needs solving. So how do you identify the better damp proofers?
That's a really good question, Paul. Yes, there are a number of national companies, and they've got their place in the marketplace. The one independent accredited body that anyone can look up is called the Property Care Association, abbreviated to the PCA. Anyone can go on to their website, and you've got options there as what is the problem, and you can select damp is your problem. You then put in the postcode of the address of the property that's got the issue, and the website will then generate a list of the geographically nearest positioned accredited damp proofers to that property. And they will be a mix of one-man band independents through to the recognised national companies. Now, what's the value of using a PCA accredited contractor? Well, for a contractor to be a member of the Property Care Association, they would have had to have gone through a number of exercises to approve their levels of understanding, so that their technical skill sets, their workmanship is also audited. Yeah, the standard of their report production is also checked. Their surveying procedures are checked. So if someone is a PCA contracting member, they've got to that point because they have proved and it had their accreditations independently verified by that body. But of course, then outside of that, not every damp proofer wants to be a member of the PCA. And they may well be, a 25-year or 30-year or even, father to son specialist damp proofer. And they will also be worth their salt because, nothing beats experience. Because if you've been damp proofing for 30 odd years, you would have pretty much come across all kinds of problems. So long as they continue to move with the product developments, yeah, they will be a really useful man. What I advise members is you just, you make contact, you reach out to form your own little supply chain. You strike up relationships with all manner of people, don't you? Your insurance advisors, and a good builder, a good damp proofer, they're worth their weight in gold. I've just lost you, mate.
Problem, I've just looked up PCA, and dare I say, the two companies I was thinking of, nationwide ones, are on that list. So I'm thinking, for goodness sake, we can't, in my view, even believe that organisation if they allow the big boys to come on there, bully themselves on there perhaps, and supervise it. Because I'm talking about companies that I know, people who I know and trust, who have left them because they're under pressure to hit the sales targets. And they've gone, no, I'll refuse to do that. And they now work for different organisations. And I'm glad to say that the organisations they're working for are also on that list. So that's good. But
so you raise a good point, and that's you wouldn't be the first person to raise that point. And yeah, it's an open marketplace, and that those kind of surveyors who have identified that, well, it's what is it? Profit first rather than the right outcomes. Then they make the right decisions and find themselves in at other companies. It wouldn't be right for me to say better companies, but where they feel better about what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. We could argue about that. No argue about that all night, couldn't we? So, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, this would be the last slide on that. So in summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Education and awareness, for me, that's a huge area for all of us to focus on. There is an awful lot of good information out there. There's an awful lot of bad information out there. If we just reach out to good supply partners, the case with myself and the LMPG, I think we're one of the founding supply partners to the LMPG, and we've maintained that relationship. And I think we've maintained it on the basis that we've provided LMPG members with good information. I took calls at Alliance pretty much every day from an LMPG member, and I can honestly say the majority of the outcome of those calls was to provide information only, and I was happy to do that. So education, developing good relationships, look after your investment. You know, start to think of it as a product. I don't think that's an unreasonable suggestion. If you could be reviewed on your product, you know, would you be getting 5-star or 1-star reviews? Think of it like that. You are offering a product at the end of the day. Materials. Get advice. Get advice on materials. I think yes, I get that there are profit considerations, but yeah, think of the product. Get information on the product that you're looking at or need advice on. I know that I did quite a lot with LMPG members for providing advice on materials, supplying the materials, and then advising their chosen local builder. That was a partnership that would work quite well quite often. So they knew that they were getting a good product. I just needed to convey to their builder that they were then using that product in the right way. Having the right mindset, I think, is key. I think landlords should be aware of the various changes in legislation. It is getting tougher. I totally get that it's getting tougher for landlords, but equally, you know, not to be dramatic, but in a court of law, I think we all know that ignorance isn't an excuse these days. And yeah. Just gen up, find out, you know, get as much information as you can, be hungry for information and the right information. Yeah, finally, I know I'm being cheeky, but I do see, yeah, look after your properties better than your cars. All right, mate. I think that's the last.
Right though, Chris. So I'm just going to leave this slide up for a second.
Sure.
And then I will be very cheeky indeed. So as Nick mentioned earlier on, we've got, I don't even know how many questions now, but absolutely loads. I had probably 5 or 6 emailed into me before this webinar even started. And then we've got some on Facebook as well. So it may be a futile attempt, but we'll try and get through as many as possible. Before we do that, however,
thanks to Roger. Thank you.
So Roger just said remedial are brilliant. And I think, Chris, obviously you were a huge part of that for the duration of time that you were there owning the business. Yeah, I just wanted to talk quickly about some news with regards to Worcester Bosch. I mentioned them earlier on. The Worcester Bosch of boilers. Nick has brought up on the last couple of webinars and on Facebook that we've got some great news with regards to these guys coming up. Well, it is now official. The Green Star 2000, which is their newest boiler, is now priced with LMPG. I'm not allowed to reveal the price. It will be up on the LMPG website later this week, so I can't tell you that it's anything like that, and I certainly won't be doing that. We've got Alex Thomas with us as well. So Alex, I don't know if you're still knocking around there.
Yeah, I'm still here if you can hear me.
Yes, brilliant. Do you want to just take us through what exactly the boiler is and why it's such good news?
Yeah, so I'm going to be really brief. So the boiler that we've brought out in a range is called the Green Star 2000. It's available in 25 and 30 kilowatt combination boilers versions. And these are the most common types of boilers that are installed in homes in the UK. But Worcester Bosch have taken an approach over the last number of years that we really want to play and work aggressively in the landlord market. So we've brought out a product that has sits below the price point of the most popular boiler on the LMPG contract, which is the 30i. So it's priced below that, so even more better value. And it's got a number of features with that. If you click on to the next part, Anthony, I'm not going to dwell too much on the technicalities of it, but we've done a lot of work, not just obviously with the landlords, but with installers as well. And these are just some of the quotes from installers that they're really pleased that actually now that they can use a Worcester Bosch product for a market where previously it wasn't at the price point that they wanted. But of course with the LNPG, market, you are getting an even better price than what the normal market would be. If you just click on again. And our approach has been throughout our range that we want, it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're a private homeowner, you're in, you know, private accommodation, private landlord or a tenant, or work in social housing, or new builds, or in fuel poverty for eco, that we want to give an option for every scenario, no matter what type of property that you have. So you can see here that a lot of this is linked into the guarantee ranges. So prior to this evening, the Green Star I was the main boiler that members purchased through the LNPG contract, but now obviously we've got sitting the 2000. But you'll see here within the range of appliances that the guarantee increases. So yes, it is a very competitive price, the 2000, but you know, for an extra 2 years you can get the 7 years as well. We do also have options to upgrade that beyond 7 years and beyond 8 years, together with the Worcester Bosch filter. But obviously, as you naturally would understand, that there is a cost to that as well, a higher cost than what the AD filters have as well. And I think that's it, Anthony. But I did want to, it's really interesting, Chris, your presentation tonight, because obviously heating is part of, you know, part of the solution, I guess, to help prevent mold condensation. But there will be some news in the coming weeks that Worcester Bosch has developed a new smart thermostat that monitors humidity.
Right.
So, and it can monitor humidity remotely, so via an app. So you can screenshot at any minute of the day of what the humidity is. That's just a percentage figure of humidity. So there's a sensor in the control, and that may help landlords and tenants, you know, manage that those challenges of humidity or damp within homes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Anthony, for that. But hopefully that's all good news, and you'll start to see that, you know, that product on the LNPG website where you can look. But yeah, we just really appreciate LNPG's support, and hopefully, you know, many members can benefit from that particular range of products.
Not at all, Alex. Thanks for your time. We've got a couple of questions on the boiler, which I'm not going to go over now, but I'll send across to you. Without being rude, the questions I want to get to at the minute are all for Chris. So thanks so much for your time, Alex. Chris,
Go for it.
I'll run through as many as I can in the short period, and we'll send
Anthony, yeah. So I've just seen where the questions are. And you know, thank you for all the comments. I know I've been tough, you know, so, but I won't make apologies. It's, you know, I see a lot of stuff out there, and I hope some of it's been interesting. I know that there will be, you know, a lot of questions. I don't know how, I mean, and will be happy in my own time to answer as many of the questions that are applied to me. So if they can be sent over somehow, then I will be glad to do that. But likewise, my phone number was put up on a slide there, so if anyone wants to call me, not after this, I'm going to have some dinner, but anyone wants to call me, I'll gladly give them my time and, you know, be as helpful as I can to them.
That's brilliant, Chris. Really appreciate that. Well, let's try and run through just 2 or 3 now to get a taste.
Sure.
As you say, I'll send across the whole list to you.
Sure.
And you know, the webinar is going on the library as well, so people can get your contact information from there. So
Yeah.
Alex says, estate agents usually claim damps as solely condensation in viewings. How do I distinguish between damps and condensation?
You can't. So, well, condensation, well, the easiest answer to that is condensation will largely be an internal issue. Your other kinds of damps that I've alluded to would be your structural damps, rising damp, bridging damp, penetrating damp, and then a water leak. Surface condensation will typically be, water on windows, on the cold walls. Structural damp will largely, as an identifiable pointer, will quite often involve the introduction of salts, either coming up from the ground or across through brick, which will lead to a more readily identifiable staining, discoloration on the paintwork. Quite often brown, yellowy tinted sort of staining. That's more commonplace with structural damp issues. Condensation is just moisture in the air. It's clean water, as is a water leak. Not always the case though, but yeah, as an identifier pointer. But yeah, condensation is an internal issue.
Brilliant, thank you. You mentioned earlier on about, I think it was Part F of the building regs, that it's for properties built post 2010. Well, the number that I kept seeing flashing up in the chat while you were talking is 1930s, which almost 100 years ago now. So what are the current solutions for solid brick walls for properties built in, let's say, 1930s to protect from damp?
1930s is so late Victorian era was when cavity walls were introduced, albeit that they would have been quite thin cavities. So 1930s we're now pretty much into exclusively cavity wall, pretty much exclusively cavity wall construction. So I'm sure most of the members will know what that is. It's two courses of brick with a gap between them. And which will be fine. They'll be fine for another 100 years. The problems that we create are external rendering. Is the introduction of retro-installed cavity wall insulation. Weathered elevations. The weathered elevations are southwesterly facing. The cold elevations are northerly facing. Quite often, for, as you say, a 1930s house now being over 100 years old, we've changed so much about them. The heating systems have changed. The windows and window frames have changed. They may well have had still had fireplaces in the 30s. They've been removed or blocked up. All of these measures to make a house perform more efficiently have resulted in it becoming more sealed up, and the change of air has become less leading to condensation issues. So it's great, absolutely. Let's undertake these measures to make a house act in a more energy efficient way, but it's also always got to be done with striking the right balance for ventilation measures alongside of that. So as we seal a house up to keep the heat in, we've got to look at how we're ventilating it as well.
Brilliant. I just have one more question, but before I do that, I just want to point out a comment that a member made maybe halfway through your speech. It says, "Cripes, is this bollocking ever going to stop?" Which is pretty apt for today. A lot of hard truths, but it's what you need to hear. There's no use anyone coming on here really and telling us what we want to hear, but not what we need to hear. So we really do appreciate that, Chris.
Okay, mate, thanks.
So final question then. I've seen a lot in the chat about anti-condensation paint. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, good question. Well, firstly, identify that you are actually dealing with condensation, anti-condensation paint. Well, so the wrong paint for the wrong issue is not going to give you the right outcomes. So understand what the damp issue is first before you go applying any paints. Again, putting on a paint that might be an oil-based paint, for instance, you might just be forcing a damp issue onto somewhere else in a wall. To go back to the condensation paints, we were one of the first distributors to take on this product, which I now know has exploded. It's a product called Shore Therm. It's an anti-condensation insulating paint. Has microscopic glass bubbles. It's technology that's proven and tested, and they Alliance, I now know, sell thousands of litres every year, and there are now a number of other brands in the marketplace. Basically, to bore people very briefly on that, that is making an area of wall that's painted with this product more thermally efficient. I mentioned how humid air is wanting to get out of a property, and it will identify cold walls as that route out of the property. Apply this paint or an anti-condensation insulating paint to a cold wall, and it repels that moisture-laden air. Now, it's not to say that you've resolved the problem, because potentially then, well, it's wanting to go somewhere else that's cold. So you apply it knowing that to be the case. So you also still have to look at your heating and ventilation provisions. But yeah, the insulating paints do work very well. You get there are a plethora of different products out there, anti-fungicidal paints. That will work very well, some better than others. Yeah, and that's it's. I'm not going to necessarily overstate one brand over the other, but the insulating paints really are very, very good. They work very well.
Brilliant, thank you, Chris. I think that's probably all for this evening. I do apologise, members. There is just so many questions coming in that we would need forever and a day to get through them all. So really do appreciate your time, Chris, and the offer to take a look at these, and obviously dish out your phone number and contact information as you have.
Yeah, I promise to. I'll email every question. If you can get them over to me with an email, I promise I'll get to everyone.
You're welcome, mate. As soon as I can. So I'll just throw it over to you, Paul, in case you've got anything else to say.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks, Chris. We enjoyed that.
No, you don't mean it.
The best frolicking you've had in ages, Paul.
Yeah, well, I'm used to Chris seeing him every year speaking at the LMPG meeting in Mansfield. So I used to get that annually, so it makes a change for everyone else to get it. I did look and learn. So yeah, but yeah, really appreciate that. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
appreciate that. Just remember, everyone, he's not on here tonight to financially benefit from that, because he's now semi-retired, but he's still assisting us from time to time with surveys. So if you need a survey doing, then feel free to give Chris a call. Not saying he'll be able to necessarily do it, because obviously he's not going to travel all the way from Cornwall up to Scotland just for one person. So, but just be sensible. Finally, next week we have Jewson, and we've got their hire company coming on talking to us about what deals they're going to offer you. I think Nick mentioned last week it was going to be a minimum 65% off because of the issues we're having with HSS at the moment. And we're also trying to get Build Aviator on at the same time. So a double dosing of Jewsons for next week. So thanks, everyone. Apologies for the delay. And if you phone up, please don't complain to Nick, because he'll blame me and Anthony. So whereas I usually blame Nick for running late. So thanks again. Appreciate Chris. I know you're not at home, so have a safe journey tomorrow. And thanks for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.